Good evening, Green Nation. It was a weeping and a wailing and a gnashing of teeth on Thursday, September 3, as the Jamaica Labour Party defeated the 82-year-old People's National Party, founded by the man himself, Norman Manley. Trevor Monroe has described this victory as a tsunami and compared it to the PNP's defeat in 1980 at the hands of the late leader and Prime Minister, Edward Eddie Seaga. May his soul rest in sweet peace. Joining us, live and direct, is the PNP chairman, Fitz Jackson. Mr. Jackson?
Good afternoon.
Yes, good evening. How are you? Now,
I am good.
Let's just dive right into it. I know it's a tough one and we commiserate. Tell us, for those of us who missed the press conference that took place last week, what happened?
Well, on Friday, the leader of the opposition and party president, Dr. Phillips, advised the public that he had formally written to me as chairman of the party to indicate his intention to demit office as president of the party and request that the arrangements be made to allow for his successor to be elected. Having gotten that correspondence from the leader, we have convened a meeting for next Monday, this Monday, and we will consider the letter and we will commence the preparatory steps to have a new leader elected to serve our party. In the meantime, we are also going to be considering at the executive putting in place a body to evaluate the past elections on Thursday to identify what are the contributing factors to our performance in that election and to advise on the steps that we need to immediately take to remedy that situation and to put ourselves in place to be competitive whenever the next elections are called.
Okay. Now, the PNP is taking these steps to move forward. Can the public expect Dr. Phillips to remain as a member of parliament, or will he be demitting his seat as he demits office as PNP president?
Well, he will remain as president of the party, leader of the opposition, member of parliament for East Central St. Andrew, until his successor is in place. Then, of course, the leader of the opposition role will fall to the newly elected president of the party. Insofar as his position of member of parliament in the constituency is concerned, that is one that he intends to discuss with the new leader at that time.
Okay, successor. Now, how easy is it going to be for the PNP to select a successor at this time? And does that successor have to come from the cohort of members of parliament?
Well, as you know, it's a democratic party. There is no requirement for the leader of the party to be a member of parliament. It is the convention or the practice that the leader of the party who serves as opposition leader and therefore would have to be in the parliament. So we expect that to be considered in the deliberations going forward for the successor.
And have any names been floated? We're hearing even on social media already, Julian Robinson, Lisa Hanna, and some others.
Well, look here.
Mark Golding, Angela Brown-Burke.
Well, it's a democratic party. There's a process. Anyone can seek the mandate from the delegates of the party to succeed Dr. Phillips, and we just have to take it from there.
What about the naming of the Senate, Mr. Jackson? Will Dr. Phillips be choosing the 8 senators, or will this be done by the party by consensus in light of the landslide defeat?
Well, I don't know about the consensus. He intends to function as as the opposition leader until such time. As you had asked earlier when that will be, there's no fixed timeline, but it's expected to be in the earliest possible time. But bear in mind, that the parliament continues to operate, and it cannot be the case that the opposition is not represented in the upper chamber.
Mr. Jackson, Are you considering running for leader?
I have had no such consideration.
Might you
And
have it in the near future?
I can say definitively that I don't have any intention.
Okay, sir. Final words for the Jamaican people. Your supporters would have been crushed.
Sure. Personally, I want to extend, sincere appreciation to the voters of South St. Catherine who have returned me for the 7th term. It's one that I respect and I honor that privilege that they have bestowed on me. For the People's National Party across the country, we sincerely appreciate the support that we got from the party workers across the country, the party members and the voters, sympathizers and supporters, all who made some contribution in whatever shape or form towards us being successful. We regret that we did not bring home the victory as we had desired and wanted to. We have the results that we have, we respect it, and we endeavor to change that whenever the polls are called again.
Thank you so much, sir. The chairman of the People's National Party, Member of Parliament, Fitz Jackson. Oof, somebody get me a Kleenex. The Andrew Holness-led Jamaica Labour Party was in a jubilant mood, dashing away the Kleenex now on Thursday evening after securing 49 of the 63 parliamentary seats. So they emerged victorious against the People's National Party. The JLP now has more than 2/3 majority in the House of Representatives, and they've increased their 2016 margin by 15 seats. Holness is now the first JLP leader since 1967 to be elected in consecutive general elections. So he has 2 terms now, getting it under his belt. In his acceptance speech at the JLP headquarters in St. Andrew Thursday, Mr. Holness said that his government would not take us, we, you, me, everybody, the Jamaican people, for granted.
It must never be that the government that emerges from this victory takes on any characteristics of arrogance, of inhumility. It must never be that the government that emerges from this victory takes the people for granted in any way.
Well, thank you, sir. That was the right tone, the right tenor, and the Jamaican people have applauded Mr. Holness's speech. And interestingly, there were many persons who believed that the population was in fact being taken for granted, as with the Prime Minister calling the elections months before it was due, in the height of a COVID spike in this pandemic. Many persons thought that his message was one of power versus the people. In fact, the country had reported a total of 2,822 COVID-19 cases, with 139 new cases confirmed just hours before the start of the voting. So the reluctance to vote was expressed in the voter turnout, as of the 1.9 million of us as Jamaicans registered to vote, only a mere 37% turned up at the polls. And this is compared to 47.7% in 2016. Despite the odds, though, there were many factors on the opposing side that may have also contributed to the JLP tsunami-like win. And this, of course, includes the leader of the opposition announcing that he would resign if he didn't win at all at the polls.
If you're not victorious in this election, will you be stepping down as the leader of the People's National Party?
Certainly, yes.
You would be stepping down, sir?
Yes.
And will you also be stepping down as Member of Parliament?
All in good time.
Well, after you hear that, if you're in the car going to vote, you should just put that thing in reverse and not bother with the line at the polling station, because it was so disheartening. Also, the wealth plan proposed as a piece of the winning puzzle kept changing, and it was like a tide, and many of us were left confused. Where is the money coming from? Is it coming from PATH? Is it coming from NHD? Where was it coming from?
I don't know what to actually respond to, whether to respond to the plan released on Monday, or the one released on Wednesday, or the one that Damien spoke about on the radio, or the one at the press conference, because it keeps on changing. There's a 2:00 p.m. plan, a 6:00 p.m. plan, and different people are saying different things. Frankly speaking, I don't think you know what the plan is.
So collectively, did these factors have an impact? But let's not dwell on what was or what could have been. Let's head back to the victory speech of Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Brogard Holness. And it was considered by many on Facebook and in Twitterverse to be perfect. It grasped the gravity of the moment, addressing corruption, owning up to the flaws of his administration, and being ready to make the right decisions.
I want to be clear, because there are many persons who will now be assuming state authority, who may not have the understanding as to how that authority should be used. They will know clearly that this government does not stand for corruption.
On the topic of new members of parliament, and this is the best part, everybody, 14 of the 16 female candidates fielded by the JLP emerged victorious, with seats that we thought were PMP seats or safe PMP seats going completely green. Green wash. In St. Thomas Eastern, the six-star general, Dr. Fenton Ferguson, was ousted by Dr. Michelle Charles Freeman. In northwestern St. Anne, the JLP's Crystal Lee further ousted the PMP's Dr. Dayton Campbell and his dream of a third consecutive term. In St. Catherine Northeastern, former JLP Senator Carencia Morrison defeated the PMP's Oswest Senior Smith, while the JLP's Tamika Davis defeated, big upset, Ian Hales in Western Hanover. One of the most shocking defeats, though, was that of three-term Central Manchester Member of Parliament and de facto PMP leader Peter Bunting, who was beaten by political neophyte Rhoda Moy Crawford. So after these stunning results, the PMP campaign director, Philip Paulwell, who is still an MP, expressed shock while speaking to the media at the 89 Old Hope Road headquarters in St. Andrew.
It is quite shocking. I haven't come to terms as yet with all of the decisions. And yes, you're correct. It is a shocking defeat.
Well, invisible tears right now. With Dr. Phillips' retirement as the PMP president and member of parliament just on the horizon, of course the question now, you're asking it, I'm asking it, we're both thinking it, who will take over as the leader of the People's National Party? Because you know Bunting is out and stunting with Campbell, Ferguson, Azan, Hales and Fagan, and all of the risers, y'all have just risen and fallen. But Julian Robinson is now being touted as the People's National Party's best bet for leader. We see it in the Twitterverse, we see it on Facebook, but we're also hearing a little whisper about Mark Golding. But before we get into all of that and all of the other issues coming out of the election, Hardline took to the streets to get your views, to hear what you have to say about the Thursday election.
The youth them work with performance. See? It's a whichever government come boy and perform, people them are gravitate to them. And that's what politics there right now. See?
It was so awesome. And I'm glad for our Prime Minister, Mr. Andrew Holness. Delano star. I don't like what go on. That's what I say. Yeah, man, a PNP should have take it. Why, I don't feel good at all. I cut up. I talk about me, don't even know what I say right here now, because I know when I look for me get a tall. Really and truly, I feel away. But I not stop vote for PMP. PMP, I say, PMP tonight die.
One of our most prized departments is our lumber treatment plant. It is one of the most modern and state-of-the-art treatment facilities for lumber in the entire Caribbean. Our lumber is bought in raw form. They are then carefully loaded into a pressurized cylinder where it is treated with special chemicals. After the internal treatment process is completed, the lumber is transferred from the cylinder to the drip pad where it sits to be naturally dried. Our plant has the capacity to treat 50 million board feet of lumber annually. Not only do we treat our own lumber, we also offer lumber treatment to our valued customers.
We're now joined by the Jamaica Labour Party campaign spokesperson, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, and the JLP representative who might possibly become a senator, right, Delano? Delano Seiveright, to discuss their election. I'm just teasing you.
Okay.
Congratulations to the Jamaica Labour Party. Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, let's start with you first. How do you feel about this massive landslide victory?
Well, of course, happy to have had a win of the magnitude that we have, but also extremely humbled by the great trust that's being placed in us by the people of Jamaica. We're grateful. I think it's safe to say we all woke with hearts full of gratitude this morning, but also very, very clear on the immense task that lies ahead. So we're all very focused and already thinking about what next, the next steps, the immense task ahead.
Thank you. Delano, Senator has just spoken to us about the what next, the immense tasks ahead. Now, the Prime Minister's mood was apropos, definitely. Somber, though, and there was a lot of humility. Now, talk to us about that. Put that in within the context of where we are.
Well, I'm happy. I mean, the Prime Minister was absolutely sobering in his remarks as relates to the election. It is absolutely impressive that the Jamaica Labour Party has been able to literally present how it has performed over the last 4 years. It has essentially shown that it has a capability to manage the COVID-19 pandemic, and then it clearly set out the way forward in the context of COVID-19 as it relates to economic adjustments, working on some of the social issues that we have to address, and so on. So also the fact that we are representative not just of the JLP alone, but we are representative of the PNP, we're representative of people who don't vote. We are about Jamaica and what is in Jamaica's best interest. And I thought he hit all the right notes on those issues, and it shows a commitment to really making Jamaica a better place. And despite a very, very, very big victory, he has shown that, listen, this is all of us together as one, working to move Jamaica forward.
Thank you. Senator Johnson-Smith, reading the mood of the country, the people have spoken. Despite the low voter turnout, it was a powerful victory. Now, how did that happen? Can you tell us how this really happened? Because a lot of persons are confused.
Well, if they had been paying attention, they wouldn't be confused. The fact is that we put in the work. We were able to demonstrate the work that we had put in. We were not distracted by, voices on the periphery who sought to dictate the pace or the strategy of the campaign. We stayed focused on first sharing our achievements, ensuring that we pointed out how we delivered on the 10-point plan, and then publishing our larger across-the-board spectrum of achievements so that people could absorb what we had done, what we had delivered, what they may not have been aware of. There were people who didn't know what we had done in respect of the environment just because of how they engage in the developments. And also because although we were accused of being a PR government from some quarters, the fact is that heavy work was done in all sectors, and our ability to communicate it could have even been better. But we stayed true to our course.
Thank you so much.
I think all of those things contributed.
Thank you so much, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith and JLP.
Not a senator, no.
I was about to say, we are waiting to hear first thing this week what's going to come of the cabinet, and if we see Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith return to foreign affairs or go somewhere else and be just as impactful as she has been. So thank you so much, madam. And Delano Seiveright, advisor to the government, you shall return as that as well. Congratulations to both of you, and thank you so much for joining us on Hardline. Looking forward to speaking to you soon.
Thanks.
Joining me are political and cultural commentator Dr. Dennis Howard, political commentator Kevin O'Brien Chang, civil society advocate Carol Narcisse, and public commentator Angelique Virtue. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome to Green Island, Greenland. Everything is green. This is historic. Oh my goodness. Kevin, you are the numbers man in this group. Could you please tell us what exactly happened with the numbers? Bill Johnson seemed dead on. Don Anderson seemed dead on. Blue Dot right in there too. Where were you? Were you dead on too?
Well, I believe in the pollsters. All three pollsters are pretty much on the money, and we're lucky to have independent voices. But the one thing with the pollsters, you hear a lot of propaganda spread all over. The pollsters are doing scientific surveys no bias. So you can say this is really what is happening. And they proved to be right. There was about a 14% swing across the country from the last election to the JLP. The JLP won by like 4.4% last, and they won by about 14.2% today. So, and that 14% swing, I simply extrapolated those for each seat. I mean, basic math, and it estimated you'd get 45 to 50 seats for the JLP, and so it proved. A lot of what people talk about surprises were quite predictable by the numbers. Mr. Bunting, for example, he won by 7% last time. He lost by about 7% this time with a 14% swing.
Okay, thank you. Carol, Narcisse. Carol, you woke up the day after elections. What were you thinking? And tell us about, let's bring in the stats. We had a very low voter turnout. What is your feeling?
Yeah, well, we've been having low voter turnout. And, I think whilst we congratulate the Jamaica Labour Party on its victory, we commiserate with the People's National Party and its drubbing that it has had, we also have to bear in mind that some 60% roughly of Jamaicans who did not participate for various reasons, and a significant portion of that 60% has not been participating for quite some time. But also, obviously, the pandemic, people's fears of going out would have clearly had a significant impact on the turnout.
Do you feel that the percentage of persons who voted represent the sentiment of the entire nation?
Well, I think 40% is a good indication of the national mood. So I don't think it can be gainsaid at all. I think it does indicate that even if you had more people coming out, I doubt that you would have had significantly different end results. I think that people looked at both parties, and on the side of the People's National Party are not convinced that there is a team, a team that's ready, a team that's credible, a team that's
on that note,
united enough.
So
really.
No surprises. So Carol's saying that there are no surprises. Dennis Howard, how do you feel? A weeping, a wailing, a gnashing of teeth. What did the PNP do wrong?
No surprises, because guess what? We're moved into a period where it is about what you do on the ground. And I was not surprised about some of the PNP MPs that lost, because there has been a significant disquiet among a lot of the constituent about the job of the MPs. And so there's also a shift. We're past the point where a party can just suddenly foist somebody on the constituent and expect that person to win because they're riding on the party's popularity.
Is that what the numbers are saying though, Dennis? Because you look at a seat like Lisa Hanna's seat in St. Anne, and that candidate entered possibly about 3 weeks before. Now,
that's because of the work that the MP was doing might not have been satisfactory for the constituents.
So you think that the MPs underperformance factors, or are people still voting for party and party leader because there is a view?
No, I think there's a shift that we're moving up to performance. And another thing, there was a significant amount of new MPs that came from the particular area that they're running. And that's significant, because usually the parties just pick people that they believe that has no connection with the constituency, and because of the party's popularity at any given time, they will ride on that popularity and go through. And I saw where a lot of PNP MPs were going to lose because of their performance in their constituency. We saw the pressure being put on the government, and they were not listening to the people because people were saying, "Listen,
not listening to the people."
Yeah,
and that's something that we have been hearing, that they're not listening to the people. So, Angelique, is that a sentiment? Do you agree with Dennis? Did the PNP lose because it's never listened to the people and it didn't operate well in opposition? It still felt that maybe it was in government and would just ease right back in there.
He is right. The PNP has for a very long time been out of touch with where the electorate has moved to. And this result has delivered a stern rebuke to the party by the people. I think also it has given at the same time a heavy mandate to the Jamaica Labour Party, and our democracy now needs the government to understand that they have not been given a free ride by this greenwash across the country, but that now they must put runs on the board. They must understand that the people are saying, we trust you, we're confident in your ability to deliver, and that you now must give us governance that is not on overconfidence, but governance that is out of respect for the investment that the people have put in at the polls. The PNP now has an obligation to listen and to form an opposition that is worthy of the democracy that Jamaica espouses. You must show the people that you are willing to invest in the constituency.
So this change in voting, Kevin, Carol, Dennis, feel free to chime in. We're having a conversation. Is it
I don't quite agree, no.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I don't quite agree. Look at Robert Chin. He came to South Manchester the week of the before nomination. He was a total unknown, I think. I mean, I don't know much about him still. The guy in Lisa Hannon's thing. I don't believe that it's become just because of candidates. I believe this was perhaps the most leader-centric election in Jamaica's history.
Was it about Bro God?
It was about Bro God.
Bro God.
I heard on TV yesterday, I was hearing some people talking, and especially, let me tell you, Bro God's strongest constituency, young women. When I mean young, say 45 and up.
Why do you think that is? Is it because, as his wife said, he's tight and firm and sexy?
Partly because of that, but the young ladies are the most educated section of the country. 70% of the tertiary are female, right? And they have seen a guy, whatever faults Bro God has, he's a worker. He has worked, and listen, my eyes, I believe my eyes. People can talk all they want. I have been in Jamaica back from school since 1989. I have seen more infrastructure work in the last 4 years than the previous 26.
Let's hold those thoughts, because that's where we're going when we come back from the break. What next? What do we need to do? And how do we envisage this new administration leading Jamaica forward?
ARC is one of the leading manufacturers and distributors of building materials in Jamaica. We have been serving our global customers and partners, from builders, contractors, interior designers, with innovation leveraging technology, superior quality, service and efficiency for almost 20 years. At ARC, we are committed to ensure that all products are adequately stocked, and by achieving this, we have managed to be one of the premier carriers of the largest inventory in Jamaica.
Welcome back. You're watching Hardline. Thank you so much for staying with us. Of course, we're getting right back into our discussion. We're going to look at the way forward. What's the way forward? How do you feel? The new administration. But Angelique, I'm going to start with you. Now, we've just touched on the gender issue. But of course, a lot of people are wondering, how impactful was that faux pas, that gaffe, that people feel was very insulting to women? Dr. Phillips said at the debate that, you know, it's an inhibitor for women to stay home and participate in politics.
Right. Not only did the party leader make that comment, in Manchester Central, which is a seat of much conversation, the outgoing MP or the just ousted MP mentioned that Rhoda was like an annoyance on his shoulder, allegedly. So I think the People's National Party's general attitude or general commentary in the public concerning women would certainly have influenced how women have voted. I don't have the stats, but when I think about a party that would represent my best interests, based on the comments that they would have said, we also remember the comments that Damian Crawford made in the by-election with Anne-Marie Vaz and his attitude towards her as they went up for that seat. So there have been several comments in the public domain that I think would have influenced women to vote differently and certainly to vote for the women who put themselves up for leadership.
Angelique, if I may, the Phillips's comment, I think, was quite misunderstood. All the data, not just for Jamaica, all over the world, women's disproportionate role in the care economy, in caring for households, caring for families, etc., has an impact on their ability to participate in the public sphere in all sorts of areas, politics being one, and decision making at the highest level. So it is a fact. Now, I don't think he framed it as well as it could have been, and therefore a lot of people misunderstood what he was saying. But the point can't be put in the same category as Damian's point at all. There is a need, we know there is a need to have positive measures that level the playing field. So for example, in some parts of the world, it's part of why parental leave is enacted, because they recognize that you have to have both men and women sharing the reproductive work. Right. If both are to be able to equally participate in the productive economy.
Gender is defined as
go ahead. Yeah, I just wanted to speak a little bit more on what Carol said about where Damian Crawford made that statement. We have to seriously look at the kind of statements that are being said on political platforms. Yes. I think it's kind of irresponsible the way a lot of politicians get carried away with the populist culture of the moment and the music and the atmosphere. And they speak all kinds of stupid utterance, you know? And so I think there has to be a rethink. This COVID-19 has really made us want to look at rethinking how we canvass and how we party. Yes, there's a nice excitement about the rivalry and the camaraderie that we see now, replacing the violence and the antagonism. However, the way the COVID-19 limited people to express themselves as politicians, I think it will limit the amount of foot-in-mouth disease that we have with politicians. And politicians really have to control themselves, and it's on both sides, that they talk all kind of stupidness on the political canvas and on the platform.
Kevin, no.
Very true, Dennis.
At the beginning,
we'll talk about the women in politics. Let's get clear. Talk is talk, action is action.
Okay.
This election, the JLP put women up in winnable seats. Simple as that. And a lot of them won. And as I say, we had last election, before the parliament, we had 11 female MPs. Well, one died, Shahini Robinson, so it was 10 plus her. We now have 18. That's 29%. Well, Lisa Hanna has a recount. But as of now, 18 female MPs, that's 29% of parliament. The world average is 24. So for the first time, we are above the world average of having women.
And that's
a fantastic thing. Women, absolutely fantastic. And so the issue is now.
No, as I say,
the issue on the table too is numbers, critical mass important, and the quality of their performance in the House is also going to be.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about the issues.
looking forward to women bringing quality leadership.
Let us talk about the issues.
And the young women who are elected, most of them I've seen are lawyers, PhDs, highly educated women. Now, whether they will perform, we have 6 of them and 6 new on the JLP side. The JLP had 0 women under 45 last time. They now have 6.
It's tremendous. We really have attained a gender victory.
This election is a gender and age realignment for Jamaican politics.
Yes. But can we look at the issues?
And hold and encourage these youngsters and the young women, but also hold them to book. Look, yes,
holding everybody to book at the beginning of this campaign, Kevin.
Will they work hard?
Kevin, they have to be given the opportunity to, so we have to look out for that because they might be backbenchers for a very long time. So we need them in positions that they can prove themselves.
Yeah, but backbenchers have a lot of power in the House, but they're not exercising that power, right? So backbenchers, you don't have to be, in a ministerial position, etc. Bring your motions to the floor.
Yes.
Have your caucuses and raise issues in the House.
Come with informed
positions.
Will we have a women's caucus?
Activate your constituents.
I believe there is a women's caucus,
so that they are informed and can bring pressure to bear or support to bear. So there's a lot that backbenchers can do and are going to be called upon to do in this moment.
Absolutely, but can we look at the substance and the issues of the campaign? At the beginning of the campaign, we saw a dub over here, a dub over there. It was one grand party, as you alluded to Howard, and Dennis Howard. Can we speak about the substance, the issues? What can we expect? We had a 10-point plan. We got 4 out of 6 delivered. We still have things in the pipeline like the fixed date elections. We're in the middle of this COVID crisis. There's a lot of uncertainty. The 3 big C's, crime, corruption, and COVID. Where are we going? What can we expect?
Listen, I think at some point we have to come to the realization that we have to have a national consensus on a bunch of stuff. Education, health, crime, security, social justice, and it has to be a join-up situation where, despite the government, the political machinery or the directorate come to a point where there are consensus on this, because we have seen the continuity from the GLP to the PMP to the GLP. So we need it now to be a serious part of the architecture of this political system. Because if we don't have a consensus, we'll have the hodgepodge kind of situation. And then this party saying that they did that and they did that and who did what from what. We need continuity. This is one Jamaica, and we must have, there was a 2030 developmental plan. We need to have that all around.
But how are we going to develop a consensus?
Instead of this divisiveness where, like in the past, the opposition would want to have a conversation about a particular area, and the government will not entertain it. We can't go forward with this kind of thing because, as I say, there is nothing. The 2 parties are neoliberalist with a little tinge of democratic socialism. The GLP now more democratic socialist than the original democratic socialist, which is the PMP. Wow. But it's still hardcore neoliberal trickle-down things that we are dealing with. And we know that trickle-down don't really necessarily work.
Didn't work then and it's not going to work going forward.
We have to come to a consensus where we're going to have a mixed kind of a situation, because once you talk socialists, a lot of people get scared. And once you talk about the people, meaning the working class people alone, a lot of people get scared. So you need
Angelique, Kevin, Carol,
There's one word I want the politicians to talk about, and I want the journalists to talk about, and the public to talk about. The one word holding back Jamaica more than anything else. Garrisons. Garrisons.
Well, that's another how.
We refuse to confront the reality. We have one of the highest murder rates in the world. 80% take place in garrisons. We have an education apartheid system. Most of the lousy schools are in garrisons. We refuse, the politicians themselves refuse to admit they have garrisons. Who talks about it? I've personally talked to politicians on air, radio, and TV, and they say, no, there's no such thing as garrisons. Apart from Andrew Holness, he has talked about garrisons. In 2011, he invited portion citizens to walk to the garrisons. But since being Prime Minister, has he talked about it enough?
Don't forget Bruce Golden. Don't forget Bruce Golden.
Well, yeah, Bruce Golden.
But gentlemen and ladies,
the structures,
hold on a second,
the structural inequalities.
Hold on. Point is, the debate would not even start. The PSOJ, this crime agenda they've talked about. The PSOJ from last September. They said both parties must have, they have gangs and garrisons and dons.
I don't think that's a fair comment, Kevin, because the anti-gang legislation is in the House and is being debated.
Well, last time, have you heard about it? They have garrisons? Have you heard them say we both have garrisons?
An acknowledgement of the gangs to the extent where legislation is being made to dismantle.
Have you heard about their garrisons? No, ma'am. I have asked them personally, and they all run away from it. But the media must bring them together and say, "Will you admit you both have garrisons, and we need to dismantle them?"
Well, Kevin, within the context of the results, how impactful are these garrisons going to be politically in the new Jamaica, the new bright green Jamaica that we have today?
In fact, it's crime, not political. It is crime. They are the where the 80% of murders take place in garrisons.
But social inequality is more paramount than
social inequality.
Okay, excellent points, excellent and passionate points. We're going to take a break. Do not move a muscle. You're coming right back with Hardline. Stay with us.
One of our most prized departments is our lumber treatment plant. It is one of the most modern and state-of-the-art treatment facilities for lumber in the entire Caribbean. Our lumber is bought in raw form. They are then carefully loaded into a pressurized cylinder where it is treated with special chemicals. After the internal treatment process is completed, the lumber is transferred from the cylinder to the drip pad where it sits to be naturally dried. Our plant has the capacity to treat 50 million board feet of lumber annually. Not only do we treat our own lumber, we also offer lumber treatment to our valued customers.
You're tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us. We're watching Hardline. Well, you are, and it's hot over here. I'm going to throw it back into the discussion. Kevin O'Brien, Chang, you were passionately on the floor. Take it back from me now, please.
One statistic I'll give you. 161 high schools in Jamaica. Them statistic given if how many of them get 5 passes or more at CSEC. The top 10 schools average over 90%. The bottom 10 schools average under 2%. And that is where social inequality starts, with educational inequality. And the bulk of these schools are in garrisons. The bulk of the crime is in garrisons. Until we tackle garrison problem, the social inequality and the crime will always be with us.
But economic inequality is where it starts. And there are parties start there. Where certain classes have the land, have the economic opportunities, and everybody's left out. And so the reason for a garrison is not necessarily because of politicians. Politicians have exploited it and have also created their own garrisons. But this inequality has been here before independence. The British were responsible for the kind of
education inequality.
What is
the
economic
root of all inequality?
It's economic first.
So I don't know.
Carol?
Wait, Kevin. Kevin, hold on. I don't know why we sound like we're arguing, because everybody's point that I'm hearing is a point. Look here. The structure of this society began with a grossly unequal social arrangement. It changed very little when we got independence. Our economic, the structure of our economy, the structure of our social arrangements mean that the majority of people are left on the margins and the periphery. We organize our entire society to give us those results. And with those results, we then can manipulate, we then can make people dependent on us, and so on. So wait a minute, Kevin. So we have to come to a point where we agree that growth in Jamaica is important, but growth without equity is not going to give us any different results. We have to agree. We have to agree that justice for our people means that we have to give them a fair chance and start in life with some basic provisions that no Jamaican will fall below.
And
so this business of the majority of our
independence. Change at independence.
Kevin, then
no,
Angelique.
At independence, we had the same murder rate as Singapore, lower than the US. We're now 10 times the US.
Yes, but Kevin, the
we
point
were not violent in 1962.
The point we
murder rate, we had 62 murders. It has changed.
Angelique, where are you as a young person on this point, Angelique?
Just listen for a minute.
Yes, please,
let's take Dennis.
So look here. Of course, at the point of independence, but the structure we were building on is a profoundly unequal structure. And of course, you're going to get the results that you've gotten. It is no accident.
Absolutely.
Angelique,
other countries in our situation don't have that murder rate.
Gentlemen,
the garrisons have driven it.
let's hear from the young lady. Angelique, as a younger person, one sec, Kevin.
Do you know what would help? I think we all agree on the inequality that Jamaica, was established, and that carries forward today. You know what would help? A strong opposition. I am interested to see how we will balance power. So with, for example, Peter Bunting not having a seat, and with many other top tier, so to speak, opposition members not being able to sit in the House, how will we govern? These issues will be brought to bear, from garrisons to education to health. How will the matters be debated? How will we balance the power in the House? What kind of cabinet will we see? Because I think we have to have strong governance in order to address the issues of equality that we see. And we have a very weak, quote unquote, in terms of numbers. Our opposition will have very little numbers in the House.
Yeah,
and so decisions can be made by the government without significant, they can pass motions because of their strong majority.
So Angelique, I mean, yes, the elected opposition members are a key part of our governance structure.
What about
the untapped, unrealized capacity of the citizenry?
Thank you.
Of the broad citizenry, we as individuals, we through our several organizations of every type, we now need to step into the role that we're supposed to play in governance. It's not that we're to just vote every 5 years and go home and sleep, or leave the advocacy to a few people. We're gonna have to, all our institutions, media and others will have to really, really be stepping up to the plate to organize, mobilize, advocate, lobby, recommend, sit on committees, insist on a participatory democracy, draw up our leaders where they're not performing, make our views known, have an input into laws as they're being drafted.
Yes.
And for many of the big pieces of legislation, you have joint select committees. Yes. They take public submissions.
Thank you for that charge, Carol. Thank you so much.
Carol, it can't be
Go
a
ahead,
binary
Dennis,
situation.
and then we need to get to the final question.
It can't be a binary situation where we're going to be critical because it's the government that you don't like that is in power, or you are going to be critical because the opposition and all of that. It has to be about Jamaica. It has to be about Jamaica.
Panelists.
We need to move away from that situation where we're thinking binary and partisan and divisive.
Thank you. Excellent, Dennis. Thank you so much for that final point there. But I'd just like a quick round robin. The first 100 days of this new Jamaica Labour Party administration, succinctly, what are you looking forward to? What should the public have in their minds at this time? 1 minute each.
Well, Prime Minister Holness started on a good footing in his election night speech. And I am going to reiterate that we need to come to some consensus as to the way forward. And it has to be inclusive. He indicated that he would be dealing with the opposition. I don't think in the past that that kind of collaboration was as effective as it could have been. And we could have even moved the ball in terms of crime and the economy even further if we had a collaborative effort. And also, as Carol just indicated, I think it would be important for the new government to be more collaborative in terms of the input of the ordinary citizen and accommodate the voice of the citizenry. This is not.
Thank you,
this
Dennis.
is not going on a website and saying that you have a voice, but you have to reach 30,000 or 300,000.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Angelique, your 2 cents?
I think, well, the COVID pandemic is still top of mind for many Jamaicans, and how that is managed, especially considering that there might have been a significant rate of exposure over the last 2 to 3 days leading up to the election. So the Ministry of Health still has a lot of work to do. In terms of the overall leadership, I echo the sentiments. Prime Minister Holness and his administration must be careful to accommodate the voice of the citizenry, to not become overconfident with the results that they have seen, but to govern with transparency, to deal with the issues that existed before in their party structure, and govern Jamaica not as a party that has run away with the elections, but a party that has a mandate to listen to the voice of the people.
Beautiful.
Because it is the people who have spoken just now.
Thank you so much, Angelique Virtue. Carol, Narcisse, your charge. What do you expect? How should we be thinking as a country?
There will hardly be a building back better if we don't get a handle on the runaway numbers with respect to COVID. So I am where Angelique is. This is the first and second order of business. As well as we are which means that some of the measures that we had put in place between March and June 15th, we cannot not go back to them. The business of saying we have to learn to live with COVID, I think that is an insufficient mantra, because we have to start to talk about how. Yeah. How will we live with COVID? How will we adjust and reorder the structures of our society and our economy? Some industries are not going to be revived. Others are going to be so changed that we're not going to recognize them for what they were before. And somebody has to begin to engage us in this discussion. And lastly, how we're going to finance our basic budget, obviously is going to have to be front and center of the minds of the government. I don't see how we can go without looking at the issue of debt.
Thank you so much.
Rescheduling as a key part of that.
Thank you. Kevin O'Brien Chang, you're on the floor.
I agree. COVID, getting COVID under control is job one, no question about it. Job two is when the economy, there's going to be a big decline. Jamaica is going to have one of the biggest declines in the world because we are one of the most dependent on tourism. How can we keep macroeconomic stability while the social safety net, because the poor is going to feel pressure more, making sure that the poor people live, that they don't starve. Those are going to be the two things. And crime, still has to be kept under control. No matter what happens, we still have to try to get our murder rate down.
Kevin,
So
what about back to school as we go forward? I have to ask you that.
Back to school, yeah, well, that's a big one everybody's wondering about, and the whole world is actually wondering how do we deal with it. We're going to have to get the cabinet. We're going to have to get a new cabinet soon, and then here the Minister of Education. Hopefully get somebody bright, vibrant, preferably a female in my view, and can give us a proper plan. Mr. Samuda is not the right person. He's an elder man without a touch. We need a bright, vibrant woman who can touch the realities and give us a plan, because right now the plan is very nebulous.
Yes, solid. Thank you so much for joining us on Hardline. Carol Narcisse, Dennis Howard, Kevin O'Brien, Chang, Angelique Virtue. Now, our panelists have given us some sage advice and their comments have been solid. We need to transform this Jamaica. We're looking forward to a transformed Jamaica, governance by consensus, and breaking the chains which have bound us for so long. We want to emancipate ourselves going forward, even within this COVID crisis. This is Hardline. I'm Ashley Ann. We're here every Sunday at 6 p.m. Thank you for joining us.
The youth them are work with performance. See? You see, whichever government come boy and perform, people them are gravitate to them. That's what politics there right now. See?
It was so awesome. And I'm glad for our Prime Minister, Mr. Andrew Olney. Delano star. Beer, I don't like what go on. That's what I say. Yeah, man, a PNP should have take it.
Why, me no feel good at all. Me cut up. Me a talk about me don't even know what me a say right here now, because I know where me a look for me get a tall.
Really and truly, I feel away. But me not stop vote for PNP. PNP, me say. PNP till I die.
ARC is one of the leading manufacturers and distributors of building materials in Jamaica. We have been serving our global customers and partners, from builders, contractors, interior designers, with innovation leveraging technology, superior quality, service and efficiency for almost 20 years. At ARC, we are committed to ensure that all products are adequately stocked, and by achieving this, we have managed to be one of the premier carriers of the largest inventory in Jamaica.